And just take a moment to um, get yourself in a comfortable position. And perhaps you have a little bit of joy. Is there a little bit of joy to think about starting your yoga practice? I know for me that happens. You get a little like, oh, here I am. And it's such a nice, beautiful part of our day to be in the presence of ourselves for our practice. So take a moment to just appreciate, to just sense in how much your inner self appreciates you taking the time and effort for self care. And as you find your comfortable seat, so kind of dropping into the sit bones and kind of just trail down the body in your awareness until you get to a place where you really feel the pelvis. And give yourself that nice wide pedestal of support where you're grounded. Your pelvis, imagine that your pelvis is much wider and bigger than it is. And it can be a physical thing like a bird bath or an ocean or like a big giant stump or whatever, kind of visual sensing in your body helps you to connect with the ground. And just dance in there for a moment, just sense into how connected you are to the earth below you. And from that strongly rooted place, feel a sense of freedom. There's not, it doesn't have to be a stuck energy or such a heavy energy of grounding that there's not a dance or play within your spine. So feel your way into that as well. Imagine that you have roots, but that your spine has so much mobility, like grasses blowing in the breeze or any visual you have. And see if you can feel the sense of subtly reaching upward without it causing strain in your body anywhere, but just cultivating space. With all this bouncy, spacious room through your vertebrae, see if there's a little bit of room for your shoulders to have some maneuverability. So if you feel stuck, sometimes a little compression up and then down, you can kind of give a good squeeze and then release, or maybe you don't need that and you just can get a nice little roll of the shoulders back. So, whatever pathway you kind of access some ease in your shoulders from, once you're there, notice when you drop your shoulder blades down if it forces your chest to press forward. And if this is the case, if you kind of grip the shoulder blades onto the back and glue them down, see if you can loosen that a little bit so that the rib cage still can maneuver, where you can almost feel as if the shoulder blades and the ribs can meet each other, that you're not just pushing the shoulder blades into the ribs, but that the ribs are coming to greet the shoulder blades as well. And then feel your way into the heart space. So as you manipulate bones, and try to find just that sweet spot for yourself where you feel stable and free. Let's move energetically into the heart space and find your way into your breath. And you feel that subtle ebb and flow that the breath offers. And can the tidal pull of the breath give you a greater capacity to feel into the energy body. And as you kind of move through the koshas, that physical form kosha, and then the prana, the breath and the energy body, and you just move a little deeper into a state of consciousness. Where's your mind landing inside you, inside your body right now? And eventually, kind of moving your way into that deep state of the um, pure bliss of the heart, really. And even if your heart doesn't feel very blissful right now, that's okay. But just find your way into that pure state of heart centered energy. And when you open there, what's there? Look inside. What is the physical sensation of a heart opening? Is there a weight or a tenderness or an ache? Is there a spaciousness or freedom? How does connecting in with the heart energy affect your mind? And what if the decisions you made today came from the intelligence that lives here instead of the intelligence that is wrapped up in our thinking mind and our patterns? So as best as you can, let the practice today help you to open up your breathing and your heart. And if nothing else, you'll walk away with some nice posture and some feeling of freedom and maybe even more. Let's bring the hands together at your heart. Bow in, connect into that state of where the thinking mind, the feeling heart, and the doing hands reside together. And in this place, create an intention. Let's release your hands and let's find our way onto our back. All right. So as you stretch out and lengthen, we'll do just our normal kind of warming ups. And then we're going to move into some gentle awakening of the thoracic spine. So first, let's just feel our way onto the ground. Relax your head. And if it feels good, you can follow me. And if it doesn't, you can do something different. If you want to, stretch your arms overhead and let's just enjoy feeling the openness in the sides of your body. Nice reach to and fro, left side, right side, getting some length. And never underestimate the power of the body to have patterns and to have one side be very vastly different from the other. And it doesn't have to be necessarily due to an injury. It could be due to just the way you tend to move your body and hold your body. So just notice even the simplicity of stretching one side of your shoulders and ribs versus the other, if there's a difference in your sensation or capacity. And then bring our knees into our chest and just give a nice gentle rocking, saying hi to yourself. Again, having a little joy at just the simple acts of being inside your body. All right, let's circle the knees, kind of rolling in one direction a handful of times. And then switching directions, let your spin happen. Notice how your secondary spin is probably a little more clunky, a little less familiar in your body than the other. Maybe not. Maybe you're very, bilateral in your capacity. And then come to a neutral and then bring your knees away from the middle and bring them back in toward the middle and just say hi. And for you, it might feel really good to bring your knee into your chest and stretch your other leg long on the ground, but that may not be good for everybody's spine. So feel free to put your foot on the ground as you give a little compression into the hip joint. If you want to disturb your SI joints as little as possible, then I would suggest putting your left foot on the ground instead of stretching it long on the ground. And if you don't have any challenges going on with your back or your SI, then feel free to deepen the stretch. Something as simple as this can really take your pelvis offline. So always be very mindful about how every single little pose impacts your well-being. Move around in your ankles, wiggle your toes, feeling a nice sense of surrender through your head.
And then put that right foot down onto the ground. Put your left foot on the ground next to it. And just notice the difference between your two hip joints, just having done one side versus the other. Let's come into a place of symmetry before the other side. So ground the four corners of your feet. Lift up into a low bridge. It doesn't have to be your super duper high, but feel that integrity of hugging your muscles to your bones. And then slowly lower your pelvis back down. Left knee into your chest. Right leg can stay on foot on the ground, or you can straighten your leg on the ground. Whatever feels right. Wiggle your toes and stretch around in your ankles, just getting some of that fascia to wake up, open up. And then release that leg to a star on the ground. So our body is big, open wide. Take a deep breath in and squeeze everything you can squeeze, a little pendiculation. And then exhale to release all that muscle tension. Draw your knees into your chest and rock again. Now you get to decide, does it feel good to pull your head up into a ball, or does it feel better to keep your head back down? So feel that sense of swirling away into a little snug ball. And then one more time, opening big and wide. And then exhale, drawing your knees in. Put your head on the ground, arms out to the side, and let's windshield wiper our knees. Just kind of getting a sense, how's your spine in some twists today? Full breaths. We're going to find our way all the way over to our right side. You can put a block underneath your head, or your little smushy purple ball, or whatever, or a blanket, whatever you want, or nothing. Stack your knees, stack your hips, stack your ankles, palms together. Inhale, let's open up to a big twist here, and then exhale and bring your hands back together. So you might let your knees slide offline, and you might keep them together. This is a very safe twist to do either or. And it really does impact your thoracic spine differently, depending on what you do. Find your breath. We're just twisting open, gently trying to open up that vibe. Now, a little bit different for this one. Instead of having our hand just come up in the air and cross to the back of our body, we're going to do a big backstroke stroke, so a big circle. So bring your left hand up over your head, spin it around behind you. Let your head follow your hand and bring your hands back together. Let your eyes follow your hand. Maybe do 3 rounds of opening up your shoulder in a big arc like this. How's your breathing? And after 3 rounds of that, we'll roll over onto your side and come to the other side. If you prefer supporting your head, do it. And if you'd like it on the ground, do that. Right angles with your hips and knees. And then let's open up, bring your hand behind you, opening up across the chest. And then exhaling to come back, palms together. So just very gently opening up the thoracic spine and the shoulders. And for some, like for me, this doesn't feel gentle at all on the side that I have torn my shoulder all up into pieces. Okay, so even though I've recovered a lot of my range of motion back, there's still a very big discrepancy between my two sides that radiates fairly deep in my body. It's not just in my shoulder joint. So notice that for you too. If you've got some patterns in your body that are different from one side to the other for various reasons. And then when you're ready, let's take that big circle swing. Let your head follow your hand. So like a backstroke. So the arm's going to come up overhead behind you and circle back to join in. And you do this as big or as small of a circle as your shoulder and rib cage likes to have. So this is a good way of just sensing how open is my shoulder on that plane. And then stretch onto your back one more time, starring out your body. And then draw your knees into your chest again. Put your feet on the ground. palms are gonna face up. We're gonna cactus our arms. So elbows are bent at a right angle. And have your elbows straight out from your shoulders and then your hands right in line with your elbows at a 90-degree angle of your elbows. And this is a great way to just sense how open is the rotation of my shoulder. So if you notice that you can't put the backs of your hands on the ground or there's some challenge there, it's just some good information to pay attention to. Also notice if your ribs or your spine want to lift up away from the ground in order to accommodate your arm. See if you can descend the ribs toward the ground and let your exhales give you a little extra weight into the rib cage. All right, and then release that. Bring arms straight up in the air, and we'll just have a little protraction and retraction. We've done a lot of movement with the shoulders already, but now let's just reach our fingers up toward the sky. Feel your shoulder blades spread, and then pull the heads of the arm bones down toward the ground and feel them kind of set into the shoulders. So just a couple rounds of protracting, shoulders widen, and then retracting, shoulder blades narrow toward each other. And then lastly, one more time, reach your arms up overhead and feel that big length in your body. And then knees coming to your chest and roll to your side and come up onto your hands and your knees. Okay. All right, let's start to move through some cat-cow. So an arching of the spine, a rounding of the spine. Taking your time to just feel your way into some movement of the vertebrae. Be very mindful. How are you? Is there anything that's bothering you that you need to kind of pay attention to? And again, cat-cow is not just about the spine, but it's the relationship of the shoulder blades to the ribs as well. So as you arch your back and lift your head and tail, feel your shoulder blades slide toward each other. And as your head drops and your tail drops, feel your shoulder blades move away from the spine. And just feeling that there's a lot of joints getting some movement here. The joints of your ribs connecting to your vertebrae, one vertebrae to the next vertebrae, and your shoulders blades on your back, as well as your arm bones and your shoulder blades, your collarbones against your sternum. There's so many joints that are moving in this cat-cow. And then offer a little bit of lateral movement or swirls or anything that's going to help you loosen your body. And then stretch back towards child's pose and walk the hands far out in front of you. Feel into the reach of your shoulder here again. You may feel that this is a big stretch. You may feel like it's hardly anything at all. You may feel different one side to the other. Let's find each side. So walk the hands over to the right side of your mat so the left side body can open up, and feel that fascial pull from your palm, your finger pads, all the way through your arm, into your shoulder, into your ribs, down into your sideways to your sit bone. Let your breath travel into this posture as best as it can. And then coming back to center, walking the hands over to the other side and feeling that beautiful reach. Feel a sense of weight as your pelvis comes down. Sense into the whole side of your body and let your breath travel here. Coming back to center, back up again. Before we do our classic twist that we often do, lie on your right side. Again, you might have a little bit of a pillow. If you'd like, you can grab a block or something to put under your head. So bend your knees, let your body be comfortable, and just see, first of all, how are you lying on your shoulder? This is called a sleeper stretch. Have your elbows straight out from your shoulder. So it's not close toward your ribs, but straight out at a 90-degree angle. And have your fingers pointing straight up toward the sky. Your palm is facing toward your knees. And we're going to slowly wave your hand down toward the ground, palm coming down toward the ground, and your other hand can gently, your left hand can place itself on top of your right. So just gently feel your way into that internal rotation. So, like for me, this is a ginormous, huge stretch. For you, it may feel like not much at all. Make sure you're in a happy place with your shoulder and there's no pinching in the front of your shoulder. So, the shoulder is such a complex joint. It's actually two joints. And there's also really three joints or four joints or five joints when you think about its relationship to your collarbones, to your sternum, to your shoulder blade on your ribs, to the way your ribs meet your spine. So there's just a lot of kinesthetic chain that helps to support our shoulders. How's your breath doing here as we just kind of hang out in this internal rotation of the shoulder joint? And then release that. Spread out onto your back, arms straight out to your sides. And then let's roll over and do this same pose on the second side. There's lots of ways of moving toward internal rotation with your shoulder joint, but this is just a nice, relaxed, gentle one. So be comfortable on your side, knees bent, soft, support your head. The elbows straight out from your shoulder. Palm is facing toward your knees, fingers toward the sky. Drop your palm toward the ground. Other hands can rest on top of your hand to give just a little bit of extra pressure into this internal rotation. And you want to feel stretched, but you don't want to feel like you're hurting your, the capsule of your shoulder in any way. So this is for many people, a very big stretch in the shoulder. Just allow yourself to receive. Breathe deeply. And you might notice that one side is very different or very similar to the other. So just pay attention to what your body is capable of. And release that. And one more time, stretching out big and wide, the star on the ground. Bring your knees into your chest and roll to your side. Coming back up onto all fours, moving your spine around. Okay, before we do a twist, we're going to do some rib cage rolls. So have your hands firm. You can always take fists on the ground if your hands are not happy here. Let's move the rib cage. We'll drop our ribs down toward the ground, over to the side, up toward the sky, over the other way. Just really accentuate. I think I've said it many times before. Imagine your torso is inside a paper towel tube, and you're trying to paint the whole inner rim of the paper towel tube with your ribs, so that there's just no gaps of spreading out into all those directions. And then switch directions, let your ribs roll the other way, finding your breath. All right, and then relax. Come onto your knees. We're going to inhale. Lift our arms all the way up to the sky. A big swoop out to the side, back onto all fours. Reach your left arm all the way up in the air. Exhale and slide that shoulder down for a twist. Gaze through your eyes downward toward the ground, so there's a lot of ease in your neck. So if we look up, we tend to strain our neck. So just turn your gaze downward. Your head can stay neutral. Right now, when we come out of this pose, we're going to face the ground. So the arm stays under there, but you can slide it out a little bit. Face the ground. Collarbones broaden and widen. And drop back a little bit towards child's pose. And just a teeny bit of compression in that AC joint where we're nice and wide across the collarbones. Release that. Lift that arm all the way back up in the air. Hand comes down onto the ground. Switch sides. Arm up. Exhale, slide that shoulder down, gaze toward the ground. Enjoy the twist in the spine, breathing deeply. Amazing how stuck we can get in our ribs and in our breathing and in our frozen sense of neck and shoulders. So just let this practice today kind of thaw you out in some of the ways that you may hold tension. Face the ground, collarbones broad, arm is underneath you, posterior capsule stretch. The sit bones drop down toward your heels. Don't worry if you don't go anywhere near your child's pose. Just pay attention to what's happening in that shoulder joint. Collarbones wide. Inhale, reach that arm all the way back up in the air. Hand comes down onto the ground. And let's come all the way up to standing. Before we get ourselves caught up in the dog pose, let's just come to stand. Shake out your hands. Let that kind of shake travel up to your shoulders, maybe to your spine. And maybe a little bit of bounce, loosen up. Just see what part of your body wants to just kind of jiggle and swish around. All right, and then find Tadasana. So let's pay attention to our legs. We've had so much awareness of our upper body. Pay attention to your legs now. Ground into the four corners of your feet. Okay, inhale, reaching the arms up. Let's lean back a little bit, cactus, open your arms, just sense where's that energy going, and then release your hands down. One more time, a big swooping up, and then an exhale, and lowering your body into Uttanasana. And it's very rare we do an Uttanasana before a dog pose, so just sense in how's your back. Maybe you need a little bit of support. Maybe blocks are so helpful for you here. Inhale for a halfway lift, opening up the backs of the legs. Let's pedal here a moment. Bend one knee, then bend the other, dropping one heel down, letting the hips go offline if that feels good to your body. And then bend your knees and let your body just shake itself down toward the ground like a tree kind of shaking off some fruit. Inhale for a halfway lift, growing a little longer, melt and fold. Hands down, dog pose. Just notice all the space in your spine. This is such a beautiful way of doing a forward bend. There's so much room. So feel the heart lift toward the pelvis, and maybe we're pedaling the feet here, dropping one heel, dropping the other heel, opening up the legs a little bit, paying attention. How are your hamstrings? How are your calves? Kind of let yourself warm up slowly. And when you feel ready, feel the fullness of your posture here. Roll your weight of your hands toward the index finger mounds. Feel that rooting. It's maybe a slight hugging of the whole hand toward each other. See what lights up in your chest and ribs when you do this, and use that support to help you push off your hands to lengthen through your spine again. Come forward into a plank, and remember that protraction and retraction. See if you can push the ground away a little bit, finding that stability through the center body. And then put your knees down and find the ground. Couple of shoulder rolls, so we're seeing and feeling into that mobility of the shoulder blades on the back. Inhale for a cobra posture. And then exhale, melting back down. One more time, feel that back bend. Live in your spine. Exhale, and release toward the ground. Up onto all fours again. Feeling the swish of your spine. While we're here, walk your hands forward. So we're coming to puppy pose. The thoracic spine finds its way toward the floor. The hips stay high. So pelvis over knees. Your head might reach the ground. It might not. Is there a little resistance under your armpits so you're not falling toward the ground? And then slide back to all fours, give a little swish in your spine. And then let's bring our hands onto blocks and bring your right foot forward. Keep your back knee on the ground for a moment. Just let your hip flexor open, finding your breath. And then when you're ready, lift your back knee up off the ground. Feeling a full lunge, shoulders away from the ears. Let's widen those collarbones again. Feel your ribs breathe. Start to bend and straighten the front knee so we have a feeling of opening up the full back line of the body. Also feeling the hip flexors open up. So just go where your body says to go. There's no depth requirement for this posture. All right, and then round yourself. Feel your lunge. Inhale, come on up. Take your arms down at first and feel that as you kind of reach your fingers toward the ground, reach your crown upward and feel the collarbones open up here. Find your breath, enjoy your legs starting to have some strength and openness. And when you feel ready, if you want, you can lift your arms to the sky. Grab onto the left wrist with the right hand and just a little bit of extra opening through your ribs and shoulders and hip. And coming back to center. And let's cactus open the arms and then release the hands down again. Integrate your ribs. Shoulders, your collarbones broaden, the heads of the arm bones reach toward your fingers. And then release your hands down to the ground. Back foot comes forward, full deep. Let your knees bend a lot. Wobble your head. Maybe shake your tail. Inhale for a halfway lift. Melt and fold. Again. Step your other foot back. Left foot is in front, right foot is back. Place your knee down, opening up through the hip flexor here. Full breaths. You ready? Lift your back knee up off the ground. Ground yourself, feel your lunge. Let's go ahead and bend and straighten the front knee. So we're just letting our lower body have a moment in the sun where we're just feeling our way into some openness and into some mobility, into some awareness. Make sure you're enjoying everything you do, even if there's difficulty in it. Is there something that just is enlivening or opening within your body, creating freedom? And then ground yourself in your lunge. Inhale, start with your hands pointing straight down. So as you imagine that you're holding like a little bit of a weight in each hand. So there's a sense of having to rise up against that resistance. So feel your spine rise, your collarbones widen, your core is engaged a little bit. Finding breath. Inhale, reaching the arms up and feel that extension in your ribs. If you want to, grab your right wrist with your left hand and a little bit of a reach upward, finding your breath. Come back to a neutral posture. Let's open up the arms, maybe a cactus on the way down if you'd like. Hands down one more time. Ribs are integrated, collarbones broad. And then exhale and walk your back foot forward. Come to Uttanasana. A halfway lift. Melt and fold. Let's take our legs wide on the mat, so turn sideways. Just kind of making sure we touch our legs a little bit since most of our practice is going to be in the upper body. Let's just feel our way here. Feeling that deep groundedness, long spine, root the four corners of your feet. And then come up to stand and grab your yoga strap. We're not going to do the full movement or the wall clock. There's so much we could do. We could spend 2 hours.
But this time, just take your hands behind you. So our strap is behind us. And you can have it kind of with your hands next to your shoulders. You could also go a little wider to see what feels comfortable. We're going to open up the heads and the arm bones. Be very mindful that you're not doing this and pushing your belly or chest forward. Stay neutral. Open up the shoulders, heads of the arm bones back, collarbones broad. And now pull your hands apart on the strap, like you're trying to stretch the strap longer. Take a deep breath here. And again, this may feel like nothing to you, or it might feel like a lot to you. Just see what your shoulders are doing today. And then relax. We're going to repeat it one more time. You can have the hands anywhere, just right close to your hips or a little bit further apart. Heads of the arm bones back, collarbones broad. Integrate the legs. Feel the stability of the of the pelvis, and integrate the ribs into the body. And then pull your hands apart on the strap. Open up across your chest, heads of the arm bones. Integrate the ribs. And then relax and melt that sensation. All right, so let's find our way down onto the ground, and we're going to grab our ball. Okay? So I have it about half smushed, not half filled. This is purely a personal thing. Okay, so you just have to figure out what feels good to you. And we're going to start with this ball kind of under our armpit, and you can put your head on a block. And by under your armpit, I mean kind of on your ribs, but close to your armpit. So maybe just south of the armpit. And back, we don't have to come into that sleeper stretch, but the same kind of position. And if you struggle with lying on your side, sometimes having this ball under and a block under your head can make a little gap and room for your shoulder. So this is very simple. All you have to do is just breathe here. We're not going to do anything fancy today. You can do that, freeze frame thing if you'd like to, that we've done before, or you can just allow your body to breathe into this ball. Let your exhales come fully. We'll do a little bit of movement with the ball in a moment, but first just breathe. We're going to bring our top hand, our left hand in front of us, just for a little bit of stability. And I just want you to roll on that ball. Kind of slide on it a little bit. So you're kind of rolling forward and rolling backward. Just so you get a little teeny bit of a massage into your ribs. And then we're going to move the ball down a notch. So put it anywhere you want on the ribs. We're just going to do these two positions today. We're not going to go lower. So see, just a happy place for this ball to kind of give your lungs a little bit of massage. Readjust your shoulder, and let's start with the movement here. So just kind of, you can have a simple just rolling forward and rolling backward, but I like to kind of turn it into a little bit more of a snake feeling where you're literally sliding your ribs on that ball and pushing them over the front and then over the back. And this is purely a feel kind of thing. Like there's no right or wrong way to kind of give a little massage in there, but just sense into what feels good. And if you have a spot, like on the front, more on the front of your ribs that you want to kind of massage into a little bit, then great. Maybe it's in the back. Maybe you just, landed just exactly where you should be. So just dance around, play there for a moment. And when you're ready, find stillness. Remember our head. It's really nice to support your head on something in this pose.
And we're just gonna breathe. You can hold your opposite ribs if that feels better. To kind of sense that hoop of your rib cage, or you can keep your arm down. Now try on your exhales to melt your ribs into the ball. I know it's not super comfy. And on your inhales, try to fully lift your breath into its full inhale. A lot of mobility in your rib cage here as you both breathe deeply in and fully out. You might start to feel a little release through your diaphragm. And you could dance around with this ball all day. You can roll onto your front with it or onto your back with it. There's so many ways in which to use a somewhat deflated ball as a massage tool for your ribs and for your lungs. But for today, we'll just do those two. So now we're going to come to the second side. And before you do, when you sit up for a minute or go on your back, just notice the difference between your two sides. Take a breath. Notice how your breath may feel differently on one side versus the other. And then we'll come to taking the ball close to your armpit on the top ribs. And let's start with some movement. I know we start with breath on the other side, but let's start with a little bit of movement here. So just a little bit of rocking back and forth. And you can adjust, where the ball is, adjust your breast, adjust the ball, adjust whatever needs adjusting, so that you're just in a really happy place of a teeny bit of self-massage on this ball. Give your nervous system the cue that all is well, and you can just melt and soften into this ball. And then when you're ready to be still, again, you can have your hand on your hip, you can have your hand out in front of you, you can have your hand on your resting on your side. So, whatever feels good. The most important thing you're doing here is breathing well. So much of the time when we think about opening our hearts and chest in yoga, we think of back bends. We think of these big, broad chest openers. But sometimes it's important to remember that your rib cage is a 360 thing. It's not just heart up and forward. Sometimes if we can gain some mobility around the sides and in the back, and really sense into all this joint coupling that happens in our torso in relation to our shoulders, we can get farther with feeling that soft, surrendery openness. And when you feel ready, drop the ball down where you want it to be and begin with a little movement. Now, of course, I'm kind of just hurrying us along just because we don't have all day, but maybe sometime you do have all day and you can just really play with this ball in your rib cage. You can do a lot of work of moving this ball. You can do it against a wall, where you put the ball against a wall and kind of put your chest up against the wall and kind of maneuver your diaphragm over the ball. You can do that on the ground. There's so much you can do to just play with a little bit of diaphragm and rib cage self massage. Once you're ready to be still, just focus on the breath. Remember that the attachments of your diaphragm live all in the inside edge of your rib cage, and in your bottom ribs. And if ever you just can't quite get this right, try deflating the ball more. There are lots of things to consider when you're doing some self massage like this. the ball, compressive, you know, how full, how empty, where you're placing it, how you're breathing, what you do beforehand to let your nervous system come to a place where it can accept this. There's so much to it. All right, let's come out of there and find your way into child's pose. Stretch your arms overhead and just let your back body breathe. You don't have to be super strong with your arms. You can let them be melty, or you can stretch them tightly, whatever feels good. Back up. Last position we'll take with the ball for now. And you can do this against a wall if it's too much to lie on your belly on this. So we're gonna put the ball right at your sternum. Okay, so it can be a little lower on your sternum, a little higher on your sternum. I'm gonna go for kind of like the bottom half of my sternum as the epicenter. But you do you. If you just have breakfast, this is a terrible thing to do. So, you know, just know where you are in space. You can put your head on a block if you'd like to keep neutral. You can put your head on your hands, whatever feels good. And again, you can maneuver anything you want. You can rock a little bit on this ball. There's no rules. You can put this all through your belly and maybe in your psoas. You can drop the ball kind of into one side of your waist at a time and rock around on it. So much you could do. But for right now, we'll just have that ball and you can deflate it a little bit more if need be. And just find yourself breathing. See if you can let your arms relax so the back body's opening. Again, imagine that 360 nature of your rib cage. All right, release that. Come into dog pose if you want to. You can go into child's pose instead if you don't want to. Feel that full extension in the body. And then walk your feet forward. We're almost ready to come resting on the ground fully. Shake your hips a little bit. And then inhale and come on up. Last little self massage we're going to do. I'm coming closer so you can see. See if you can take, you know, obviously we did a lot of work with the shoulders, but take your finger pads, you know, you have your collarbones, stick them right underneath, right at your sternum and collarbones where that joint is. See if you can just let your finger kind of land right underneath your collarbones and just give a little teeny self massage right across your sacrum and then walk underneath the bottom edge of your collarbones and just find any little tender spots. You can use your thumbs, you can use one hand at a time and you know, on the opposite side if it's easier to do one side at a time. So just kind of find your way. Fingers, thumbs, one hand, two hands, whatever feels good. But find a spot. You have a muscle in there that tends to kind of bind our collarbones down toward our sternum. So just see if you can find a little tender spot and get in there a little bit. Now you can put a deflated ball in here too. You just have to be mindful that you're never, you know, having it right up against your throat. All right, and then relax and let's just have some arm swings. Fill up your breath. Maybe some big arm swings. Maybe slow, maybe fast. Maybe you kind of spin and do a little bit of a twist. Kind of just find whatever's going to make your rib cage and your body feel free. You can do a little lateral bending. So many choices of how you choose to move. And then just sense, how are you breathing? So stand in a nice sturdy Tadasana.
And notice the full 360 of your rib cage. Notice the relationship of breath and movement of your ribs. And you feel your breath traveling under your armpits, all through your side ribs. And you feel the backs of your ribs open up and move on the breath. So diaphragm have a 360 nature to it where you're not just feeling this pull in the front, but there's a dome inside you. When you're ready, we're going to set up for Supta Baddha Konasana as our Shavasana. So you can do this in a very supported way with a bolster and a ramp of blocks and such, like we often do. You can do this flat on your back. So you can also choose, if you're like, no, I haven't had I purposely have not done a lot of back bending today as a sense of opening up these areas. So really lying flat on your back with blocks underneath your knees is just fine. The other way, if you feel like you want just to feel those ribs move a little bit, you can take a pranayama blanket. So, accordion fold a blanket so it's a little skinnier. That's the way I'm going to do it, actually. So a little skinnier blanket. So it really just supports your spine and maybe another one for your head. And then lying on your back with your knees supported by blocks. You could be flat on the ground. You could be up on a bolster. So just make sure that you're in a comfortable place. We'll be here for a couple of minutes and then lie flat. So as you get to any support that feels right to you, you can put your arms in any position you want. You can grab onto your elbows and stretch them overhead. You can bring your arms to a cactus. Your arms can be straight out like a T. They can be down at your sides. Just find a place where your body's like, yes, that's where I want to be right now. And the joy of having a skinnier bolster under your back with an accordion fold of the blanket, so it's a narrower support, is your back ribs get to move a bit. But this is not essential. If your back is much more comfortable lying flat on your back on the ground, or being on a wide support like bolster, that's great too. Melt your shoulders, your head, and bring yourself into your breath. Nice slow inhale and nice slow exhale. And the fullness of both sides of the breath, not a overextension, not a strain, just a fullness. Keep melting your head, keep melting your limbs.
stay like this, you can change and move into a classic Shavasana. Whatever feels good, but whenever you do, stay present with the fullness of your breathing. Impact on your body, your mind, your nervous system, state of your heart. Keep melting. You are still in Supta Konasana. Take a moment to get your props away for a moment. You can roll to your side to get bolsters out from underneath you. You can remove the blocks from under your knees. And just have a moment to find the ground. You can bend your knees and let's all do a little windshield wipering left and right. Just ease your back. Then bring your legs straight on the ground one more time. Let's lie comfortably. As you begin to find more movement, decide what needs to counter from that Supta Baddha Konasana. Maybe bringing your knees to your chest and a little rocking, maybe a little rocking side to side, maybe a little tight squeeze, maybe just rolling onto your side, and see how you want to kind of complete your practice here. Take your time and eventually find your way to your side. There's no rush. If your back needs a little care, you do that. When you feel ready, you can come up to sit for a comfortable seat. And just notice, has anything changed in your mind, in your heart, the way you're breathing, the way you're holding? Notice how you feel. So many gifts of our practice. Every day is a little different, the gift that arrives. And let's bring our hands together without collapsing the heart. Bring your hands to your heart. And let's offer this energy, sending your love to another. Namaste. Thank you, everyone.